Hey everyone, it's Max and welcome back to my Python tutorial. So we've just seen what lists are. Let's take a look at, what kind of list operations we can do. So how can we work with lists together? So let's create our first list variable, which is just going to be the basic list of 1, 2, 3. And then let's create our second list, which is going to contain the string hello, and it's also going to contain the variable true. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to look at in terms of list operations is joining lists together. So very similar to strings where we had string concatenation, here we're going to look at joining lists together. So we'll create our joint list variable, which is going to be our list variable, and to it we're going to add our second list. And then let's just print out our result, which is going to be the joint list. And so if we save and run this, then what we see is we have our list variable, so our first list, and to it we've just added our second list, so it just gives us a bigger list, and that's what we see right here. So the two lists have just been joined together. I can even extend this if I want and just add my own variable, and so to extend to a list I want to make sure that the things I'm adding together are always of the same type. So I'm adding a list here, I'm adding a list here. So if I want to add more to it, I have to add a list, even if I just want to add one element. So, for example, if I want to add the string end, that's part of a list, then I have to do it in this format. So I actually have to put it in square parentheses so that it becomes a list. And then if I save and run that, then we see I also add the end string at the very end here. So that's what we get in terms of joint lists. The next thing we can do is we can do something called splicing, which we've already seen with strings. So if we print out our joint list like this, and then we put the open and close square parentheses at the end, just like we did with strings, we can actually access the different elements. Now, in terms of counting for lists, so each element has a specific index, and the way that we would count them is the following way. So the first element of the list has index 0, the second element has index 1, and the third element has index 2, like this. So if we want to take out the first variable, or the first element rather, of our joint list, we'll be looking at index 0, like this. So we save and run, and so that's going to give us the value 1, which is the first element of our joint list, as we can see right here. If we want to look at, say, the third element, which is going to be the string hello, or actually the fourth element, so the element with the index 3, which is going to be the string hello, so 0, 1, 2, 3, we can save and run, and then we'll see we get the hello string here. We can also look at the last one, just like we did with strings, by putting in -1, or we can also splice it if we want and say, let's start at the third element, so the element with index 2. Let's go up to but not including the fourth element. And then we'll print out 3 and hello. So 3 is the third element with index 2, up to but not including the element with index 4, which is the fifth element. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we start here and we go up to but not including this, which gives us 3 and hello. And you'll also notice that what I've created here is actually a smaller list, so I've created a sublist. So if I'm not accessing one element directly by itself, like I would, for example, if I just printed out joint list and then the third element, so the element with index 2, then I'm actually getting a list. So here I'm just getting the value, but if I look at more than one element, I actually get the corresponding value in terms of a list. Now, what we can also do is we can access specific elements by using the exact same method. And let's access, for example, the third element, so the element with index 2. And we can just reassign this, so give it a new value. So let's give the number 3 the value of the string 3. And then let's just print out our joint list again, and let's see the effects that we've had. So if we save and run it, we see that the element with index 2, so the third element, changed from the number 3 to the string 3, as we could see right here. So that's how we can reassign things, and we should do this on an index by index basis. Another cool thing that we can do is we can do something called appending, which is kind of what we've done over here. So we've joined everything together, but instead of adding lists together, we can just append certain values to it. So we don't need to actually add two lists together, we can just add to the end of a list another value. So if we take our joint list and we make this equal to the joint list, and then to it we call .append. So what we're doing is we're going into our joint list, and because we want to append something to it, we actually have to put a dot here. And we'll learn more about this later when we look at functions for a little bit, but what this dot does is it pretty much means this is what we want to do to joint list. And now lists generally have an operation called append that you can do to it, and the format that you do it is you have the list that you want to append to, and then you do .append, and you open and close brackets, and then you put in here the value that you want to append. So let's put in the number 10, for example. And then let's print out our joint list result. And so if we save and run this, we actually see something that's a little bit surprising. We get something that's none. And so why do we get this? Well, the reason that we got this is because this append operation is actually done in place. And we've done a little bit too much by saying the joint list is equal to this, because really what we said is the joint list is equal to whatever is returned by this operation. And so that doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but this will make a little bit more sense when we go into functions. So that's something that we have to watch out for. If we do things like append, they're done in place, so we don't actually have to save it into the value. Actually, if we do that, we would get an error, or not an error, but we would not get what we'd expect, as we see here. And so to avoid that, we're going to do it all in place. So we actually don't need to overwrite the value as we've done here, or here we've created it, but we're overwriting it is technically what we're doing here. So we don't need to do that if we do something like append. So if we save and run it now, we see that now we've added 10 to the end of it, and we didn't have to save it or anything, it's just all done in place for us.